Neil Katyal, let's shine a spotlight on Mr. Durham himself, who likes to shy away from it. But there is some public-facing information about his impulses and instincts in this current regime. And while his reputation in previous investigations was of someone who respected the rule of law, there are some troubling outward signs. One was that as someone running an ongoing investigation, he rapidly responded to DOJ Inspector General Horowitz when there were findings that he said didn't line up with his. Why would somebody do that in the middle of an ongoing investigation?
Yeah, Nicole, I'm not going to speculate on that. I mean, Durham's had a good reputation in the past. He's obviously investigating something now. I mean, and I just have no way of knowing what that is. And I totally distrust Barr's summary of the investigation, just as I distrusted what his summary was of the Mueller report, which Andrew says was 100% wrong. I mean, if one of my students turned in a summary like that of a report, they would have gotten an F. So, I know Barr has insinuated certain things about the Durham report, but we just have no way of knowing whether they're right or not. I think the important point here is the one Andrew and Professor Goodman made in today's paper, which is we're 90 days out, and this Attorney General and this Justice Department has shown in the past and in the present that they're willing to do the president's bidding. What's to stop them from doing the president's bidding 90 days before an election?
And I guess the pattern to notice, again, all we have is what's public-facing, is that Robert Mueller spent 23 months investigating Russian interference in the 2016 election and the president's efforts to obstruct that. Bill Barr spent about, 48 hours lying about and then publicly disseminating a lie about it. Bill Barr has traveled with Mr. Durham. I mean, Bill Barr's pattern is to take whatever Mr. Durham does and lie about it for the president's political purposes. Is there any reassurance or any ability to make sure that doesn't happen again with an investigation that almost perfectly aligns with Donald Trump's political objectives?
None whatsoever. And here's a really good example from last week when Attorney General Barr went and testified, and there was a big cloud hanging over his head. All sorts of people, Republicans and Democrats, like Paul Rosenzweig, who was Ken Starr's deputy on the day that he testified, said, look, there's all these assaults by Barr on the rule of law. And Representative Swalwell got Barr to admit that only one time ever did Barr interfere with sentencing, and that was for Trump's pal, Roger Stone. And when Swalwell then goes and says, hey, this is the same guy that Trump was tweeting about, Roger Stone. He praised Stone for having the guts not to testify against Trump. Barr's answer to that was, oh, I'm not familiar with that tweet, which is ridiculous. That's the tweet that's all over the Mueller report that Barr claims to have read and summarized. And so this is an attorney general, unfortunately, who's willing to play politics and at the expense of the rule of law. And I think, Andrew's exactly right to say if he's done it in the past, if he's done it in the present, what's to stop him from doing it in the future?
And Matt Miller, again, all we have is what's out in the public for us to chew on and try to make sense of. But what Bill Barr has said in the public purview to Congressman Nadler is that I'm part of the cabinet. Of course we talk about the election. Here he is with Congressman Nadler.
Have you, now, yes or no, have you discussed the president's re-election campaign with the president or with any White House official or any surrogate of the president?
Well, I'm not going to get into my discussions with the president.
Well, have you discussed that topic with him, yes or no?
Not in relation to this program.
I didn't ask that. I asked if you discussed that with...
I'm a member of the cabinet and there's an election going on. Obviously, the topic comes up.
The answer is yes.
Well, the topic comes up in cabinet meetings and other things. It shouldn't be a surprise.
So as part of those conversations with the president or his people about the re-election campaign, have you ever discussed the current or future deployment of federal law enforcement?
In connection with what?
In connection with what you just said, in connection with your discussions with the president or with other people around him of his re-election campaign, have you discussed the current or future deployment of federal law enforcement?
Well, as I say, I'm not going to get into my discussions with the president, but I've made it clear that I would like to pick the cities based on law enforcement need.
Matt Miller, there is no need to discuss with your cabinet your political campaign. I worked for a president who ran for re-election, and Condi Rice and Steve Hadley were the national security advisors. They learned most of what they knew about the campaign from press coverage. I mean, what do you see when you look at what's public facing, when you look at what Andrew and Ryan have written, and when you just look at the patterns of Bill Barr auditioning for the job he has after Donald Trump publicly stated he wanted a Roy Cohn, after humiliating Jeff Sessions for honoring DOJ policy, after writing a 19-page memo that we think Trump may have seen saying a president can't obstruct justice. He somehow ends up with the job over other people that wanted it, people like Chris Christie, who'd worked there more recently than Bill Barr. And now the Durham probe hangs over the last 90 days.
If you go all the way back to Barr's confirmation hearing, there's a pattern. He has a tell. He often gets asked a question. The one you just showed is an example, where there's an answer that you expect an attorney general to give. In the confirmation hearing, the answer you expected him to give was that he would recuse himself from the Russia investigation because of his previous writings on the topic, the memo he had written that was seen as an audition for the job. And he didn't give that answer. I think we found out why shortly after. It's because he wanted to interfere in the Mueller probe, and he's wanted to then go back and discredit it afterwards. I think when you see him refuse to rule out releasing a report from John Durham in the last 90 days, or even in the last 60 days, or even in the last 30 days before an election, it's again because he intends to do that. And the thing that worries me is that he has two goals here. One is fairly obvious. One is that he intends to try to smear Joe Biden, not because Joe Biden did anything, but to just try to tar the entire Obama administration by claiming there was this plot to get Donald Trump. By the way, a point that Sally Yates debunked pretty effectively today. But then I also worry that there's a second goal, and that is that if Russia or any other country interferes in the election again, or if Trump is caught soliciting help from a foreign government again, as he has done with Russia and Ukraine and China, that Barr is able to release this report that attacks what happened in 2016 and is able to just put out this fog that says all of these deep staters that have made claims about foreign interference in the past, you can't believe what they said about 2016, and you can't believe what's going on right now. And at a time when you have a politicized AG and a politicized director of national intelligence, I think that would leave the American people really left wondering what they should believe right before they go to the polls.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.